Hey y'all, my name's Bryant Young.
And Derek Chaney.
Here with the Decent Dads Podcast. Brand new episode this week.
That's right. And another good episode.
This is so much fun.
Dr. Stinson set the record for most kids by one of our guests so far.
Spoiler alert, it's 11. He blew everybody else out of the water.
But he was great, man. Just, a lot of good topics that we talked about. Naturally, having 11 kids, I mean, you have a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
right?
Lots of stories. But we also talked about some of the things that any dad, whether you've got 1 or 40 kids, are probably still dealing with, having some of those tough conversations and trying to deal with making sure your kids are good, well-rounded, not entitled kids, and just trying to how to create good human beings moving forward.
Yeah. I personally really enjoyed him talking about how they approach the tough conversations.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty simple method about it, but it works really well.
Yeah,
for them.
it sounds like it works really well. So I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this episode, both from the laughs and from the serious. So.
Yep. Lots of good laughs towards the end of the episode between obviously all the funny stories he has and
one good dad joke.
Solid dad joke.
Just this the one. So I think we jump right into this, DC.
Let's do it.
All right, Decent Dads Podcast. Here we go. Welcome back to the Decent Dads Podcast. We're here to tell dad jokes, drink coffee, and build a community of dads navigating fatherhood together. I'm Bryant Young, fearless leader, co-host, girl dad, and your friendly local insurance agent based out of Springfield, Missouri. And now, before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome the coolest co-host with the most, a fantastic soon-to-be father of 3, and the home loan expert. Folks, put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Derek Chaney. How are you, Derek?
Fabulous after that introduction, man. Great job. Well, it's a good day for a good day.
It's a good day.
Got another fabulous guest. That's going to be my word this episode.
I'm excited for this one.
Me too, which we'll get into that here in just a second. But we also got some hoppy coffee in hand.
Yeah.
So who can we thank for that?
Yeah, these coffees are brought to you by our friends at Buff Studio, the official coffee sponsor of the Decent Dads Podcast. Buff Studio is a full-service architecture, engineering, and design firm with offices in Bentonville, Arkansas, and Springfield, Missouri. Learn more at buffstudio.co. Thanks, Buff Studio, for your support of the podcast and decent dads everywhere. Buff Studio, be a buffalo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Buff Studio.
Thank you, Buff Studio.
I know Buff Studio.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah?
We work
nice.
with them.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yeah, they're buds.
Job.
Yeah. Joel and the team, they're good folks.
Yep.
Actually, Joel's been a
Former
guest.
guest.
He was a blast. His was a lot of fun, too.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. This is going to be a good episode. I know these are kind of one of our more favorite ones whenever we don't know the guests ahead of time, really.
We love this so much. This is so much fun for us.
Because we haven't heard any of these stories before.
Not at all. Yep.
So normally we learn a lot in these episodes
You may change your mind.
As well, too. But yeah, so Dr. Stinson, you
can call me Matt.
Matt
it is.
What we do know about him is that he's a doctor, and he has the most children out of any of our guests so far.
I don't think we're going to have anybody that'll catch up to that.
What's your previous record? Do you know?
3?
Oh,
Four. Sorry, four.
Okay.
Four was the record. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we blow that out
So
of the water.
you blow that one several times over.
It's not even close. So Matt, if you will, tell us who you are, what you do, give us your dad resume, tell us how many kids you got, what are their ages, and which one's your favorite.
Okay. Good. Okay. Got it. Okay. So my name is Matt Stinson. I work as a physician. I work at Jordan Valley Community Health Center here in Springfield, a little bit in Marshfield, a little bit in Lebanon. Oh, cool. So all over. Father. Shoot. I have 11 children. And this is where we go off the rails.
Yeah.
So we have 11, 6 adopted, 5 biological. They range from the ages of 24 to 14. 10 of them, and then we have a 7-year-old. So,
and I think it would be, we had better say thank you to the missus as well. Tell us about your wife a little bit too, because that sounds like a rock star in waiting there.
Yeah, and so to ratchet it up a little bit.
Sure.
We homeschool them too.
Oh
so,
my goodness!
Holy,
bless her heart.
Yeah. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, oh my God. So we've homeschooled them all so far, all the way through.
Wow.
Well, until they got to college, then.
Yeah.
Of course, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I started this episode with about 40 questions in my head, and now all of a sudden I have 90 questions. I love this.
Well, she carries the water on the homeschooling until they got into high school, and then I do just a little bit with them.
Sure.
But she managed them from when we went from like 0 to all of a sudden we went to 10 and 11. Yeah.
Wow.
It's on her.
Yep. I have.
Her name is Chandra.
Awesome. Well, Chandra, you win Mom of the Century as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to talk more about this.
Yeah. Same.
So 11 children.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about tantrums on the podcast quite a bit. You've got extra experience, I would assume. Does one particular story stand out to you as like one that you would like to tell us today?
Well, let me give you a new one and an old one. We'll start with the old one.
Fair,
So
fair.
like when we had two kids and we had an 18-month-old and a 1-month-old, right? And so as they got older, our second child was more of our crazy child, stubborn. Refused to do whatever you asked. If you said go to the bathroom,
Does that sound familiar at all?
refused to, right? So I remember when she started throwing tantrums, and she threw some bad ones too. I mean, it's like she would never let them die. And so finally I was like, look, we're ignoring this. Like, let her just throw herself on the floor and go crazy. So I remember when it started and she threw herself on the floor and I was like, okay, we're just going to leave. And so we just shut the door and leave. Right. And she went at it for a long time before she let it go.
Sitting there checking your watch.
Yeah.
It's like,
And
well,
I
has
was
it been
like,
5 minutes or 7?
We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do this. Like, no, absolutely. We should do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a medical degree. We're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that medical degree gets a lot of freedom. You can like say, I'm a doctor, just listen to me.
I've got a brother who uses that excuse a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the younger one. I think what we see now is it's more of this idea of I don't deserve this. So tantrums look a whole lot different when you're a teenager, right?
Sure. Yeah,
And so
yeah.
they're like Dad, I mean, all my friends don't have to do this on Saturday. They're at home
Guilt
playing
tripping
video
you.
games and doing whatever they want, going hanging out with their friends, and you're making me go outside and mow the yard. And it's like, yeah. I am.
Yeah.
You'll thank me later.
Because this is what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they throw tantrums with words and like guilt.
Yeah. And like side eyes and all those. Oh, good grief.
Yeah.
So we have just the one daughter, and I'm already starting to see it at 3. That like rebellion, but not so much rebellion as it is just hard-headed, just like her mom and her dad. And
She gets it from both of you.
I see lots
Comes
of
by
problems in the
naturally.
future, pal. I see lots of problems in the future. What about you, DC?
Well, it's kind of funny. The boys, they're starting to get very competitive, like not with each other, with me and Allie. You know, just the little stuff. You know, it's like first one out of the room, like I win. You know, the first one up the stairs, you know, I beat you. Whoever,
Perfect. Oh, I love that.
whoever finishes their milk first, you know, Liam's like, I beat Brody. You know, I drink my milk first, and so which I love because I mean that's something I prayed for. I wanted athletic, competitive kids, but at times it can backfire too. Okay. So I think this was just last night. It was like super recent. So it's bedtime, and so we're reading them books and whatnot. And they really like those I Spy books right now. Just going through those and stuff. So
That's fun.
yeah. So we're going through it. We're finding the stuff there and whatnot. I don't remember what the object was that they was looking for on the page. Whatever, it's like a hammer or something. And Brody spots it first, so he slams his hand down on the page. And he's like, hammer, I found it. Liam, the older one, just melts. He's like, no, I wanted to find the hammer first. And I thought that was going to be the end of it. It was just going to roll off, and we'll look for the next thing, right? Nope. Tears start rolling, and then he just gets down, and, like walks out of the room and just sits down in the hallway and starts
poor
crying
buddy.
about it. And I'm like, oh no. So like,
It's not even tantrum. That's a different level, right?
so like part of me is like trying to console him, like, it's okay, buddy. You're gonna find the next one. But then too, I don't want to kill that competitive spirit either. And I'm like, you got to keep trying. You got to be faster next time.
Yeah, back in there.
Like,
Yeah.
So I'm like flirting with that line, kind of like walking on each side of it there. And so I don't know if I did the right thing or not. But they're still at it. But it's fun. I mean, it is such a fun stage right now, just seeing them, I mean, it's fun competition right now, and it's a blast. It's
Yeah.
a blast, but there are tears at times. Man,
Oh,
that's
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah,
right?
well, absolutely. Well, and that's interesting because I don't know if I'll have that experience, but talking about like competitive and sports and stuff, we've struggled a little bit. Elsie has been in gymnastics class, and as I mentioned, I have a hard-headed child, and she
Gets it from you, I heard.
yeah. Unfortunately, and she doesn't like to listen to Dad because she gets a rise out of the reaction that Dad has to her not listening.
Yep.
And that has manifested itself at gymnastics class when it's basically a mommy and me type class where it's, dad or mom are out there with the kiddo during class, and it's basically just let them go and they run amok on the gym floor forever. But mom and dad are out there, and the idea is there's a couple of stations. Okay, let's go do the stations. Let's work on the things that we're supposed to be working on, because in my brain, I'm thinking, all right, goal-oriented. Let's go do the things. They've given us some things. Let's go do them.
Here's my checklist.
Not doing them.
Not doing that.
Not at all. And so it has several times over ended up in a just fight. And finally, we actually had to leave gymnastics the other night because she was just kind of like you're talking about, banging hands and heads and feet on the floor, just screaming bloody murder.
Yep.
And every parent is going to react to that differently, and everybody's allowed to have their reaction to that.
Yep.
I know some parents will just try to coach in the moment in that space. They won't even separate themselves with it. It's not the way my brain works.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick you up and we're going to leave the situation and we're going to go be in a quiet place where we can look at each other and talk about it. So we ended up having to leave the middle of class, and I finally was like, okay, we're going to have to leave. And she was whining about wanting to leave the whole time. But the second I said, okay, we're going to have to leave. No!
That's a terrible idea.
I want to stay here. I want to do gymnastics. And poor girl.
Yeah.
And it leads right into my dad hack. So if you want to tee it up, it goes right into
Yeah, Matt. That's the next thing we always ask everybody is, give us maybe your best dad hack or
Dad hack alert!
or maybe some good dad advice that either somebody shared with you that you found really valuable, or that you share with other dads as well too. So I don't know if I should tee Bryant up with this.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just go right into
it.
Yeah. So I was talking to my mom and dad about it because they also had hard-headed children. They are me and my brother. And so I was asking my mom in particular, and she was like, you just got to you have to talk to you hours before it's a thing. You have to, if you're doing gymnastics tomorrow,
That's really good.
you got to start talking about it today. And you got to start saying, hey, when we get to gymnastics, we got to really listen to the coach. And we got to really listen to mom and dad so that we can really have fun and we can have a good time. And that has manifested itself. We also struggle with keeping Elsie in bed. She's in the big kid bed now. She, in the middle of the night for the last 3 weeks, has been coming in at about 12:30 and then 4 and poking us in the forehead saying, hey, what are you guys doing? Hey, look what I found in the floor in my room. And so because we had been struggling with this for so long and could not get her in bed, during the day, we're talking about, hey, we got to stay in bed at night. When the little light in your room, because we got a noisemaker with a light, when the light in your room is red, we got to stay in our room. We got to stay in bed. And, oh, you know what? Let's get the puppy. And we'll put the puppy out there for you. And if you feel like you need to get out of bed, you can hug that puppy real tight. And you can stay in bed and that. And fellas, it works.
Yeah,
it works.
Yeah,
And it's
a
just
great idea.
having that conversation before you need to have the conversation, so that it just completely wipes it away.
Yeah.
And it's worked.
that.
And I understand that this doesn't really have any relevance to you, but like for me, it was like this huge eye-opening thing that it's not even a dad hack; it's a my mom hack. So I'm way to go, mom. Thanks. It worked. So thank you. What do you have? Anything stand out, or what kind of hacks did you bring, or advice that you like?
Goodness, it's like where to start.
Oh yeah, you've got
So many. Let me open up my book here.
I think the advice I'd give to people is like when your kids are really young, and I'm going to call your kids young. Like I know that I thought, man, the problems I deal with are hard. but it's different. So as your kids get older, like they get real people problems. Like, and what I mean by that is they want to have their own life, right?
Sure.
And so then they have relationship problems.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, ooh, I can no longer pick them up and solve their problem by picking them up.
Yep.
Right?
Preach.
So there is some, I think, beauty in realizing when your kids are young, like you can solve a lot of their problems by just scooping them up.
Yeah.
Right. And so don't be afraid to do that. Because when they get older and they get
You'll
like
miss it when you
adult
can't do that.
problems,
Yeah.
then you're like, oh no, what do I do? Yeah.
I can't scoop you up and walk you out of the situation anymore.
Yeah, correct.
Like
Yeah,
I could
can't
probably
remove
physically
you.
throw you over my shoulder,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
it would be bad for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Well, what was it? What did Tom? How did Tom word it?
He said, little kids, little problems, big kids, big
Yeah,
problems.
Yeah, there it is.
You know, and I
Yeah.
was like,
That
that
was-
was another kind of dad advice, dad hack that really stuck with us
Love
as
it.
well too.
Yeah, that's hugely valuable because, again, it's not life and death. It's not relationships. My 2-year-old is not behind the wheel of a car at this point where she's having to make big kid decisions. It's what are we having for dinner and will we listen to coach at gymnastics?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well said. What about you, Derek?
Well, mine's super simple, and it's funny that you was talking about getting out of bed because mine kind of helped with that a little bit too.
Because you're not allowed to tie them. Tie an ankle to the side of the bed or something crazy like that.
It's been nice outside, so this weekend, it was like 85, I think. So in our backyard, we set up in one corner the splash pad.
Oh yeah, sweet.
The opposite corner, we set up the little blow up bounce house. And we just let them outside for all day before, or all morning before nap time, and they'd play in the splash pad, then they'd get bored of that, go bounce in the bounce house, get hot in there, and go back to the splash pad. I mean, they are just running back and forth nonstop. So I guess my dad hack is just get them outside, get them active, because once we got to nap time, they crashed.
Yeah.
Took super long
man.
naps,
Yeah.
and with little kids, if you can get a long nap in right now, mom and dad, that is king right now.
Yeah.
And then after they woke up from nap time, we let them do it again for even longer, like 2 hours this time. And they slept in the next morning. Me now, they're like, "What do we score?
What?
It's 6
Why
o'clock.
do we ever do anything different?
We're like,
just
it's
gonna
6 o'clock, and they're still in bed. Like, what is happening right now? And we're loving it.
What has happened to our lives where 6 o'clock is sleeping in?
Oh,
by the
right,
way, I just want to throw that out there, because I agree with
Right.
you. 6 o'clock, that's a late morning.
Yeah,
But
now. Like,
holy crap, what has happened to our lives?
but yeah, so we're definitely utilizing that this weekend as well too, as well as the weather's nice.
What are you doing this weekend?
So that's another fun thing. For those that don't know, it's going to be Memorial Day weekend this weekend.
That's right.
And so normally, people do fun stuff, go to the lake, barbecue.
Not you.
Nope, we are potty training Brody. Going to try the old naked method for about 3 days.
Immersion therapy.
See
right?
how that works for him. Worked well with Liam, but we are pretty terrified with Brody because his
Least favorite part of raising children, potty training. It's my least favorite part.
Well, you have eight boys, so
Yeah.
maybe you're full of advice on that too.
No, least favorite part. Yeah.
No, I said least favorite for a reason, Derek.
Yeah. I mean, we tried so many different methods, and it's just hard.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to change the carpet in your house?
Oh, we had unique problems. I'm not going to say who it is, but it's a funny story. So it's kind of sad too at the same point.
Oh no.
But so we adopted 4 of our kids from Ethiopia. Well, 6 of them from Ethiopia, but 4 of them from Ethiopia. And so when they came home, they were used to living in a different environment.
Sure.
So we go in one of their bedrooms, and we're like, man, it kind of smells in here. And we're like looking around for where's the dog and where is it? Is it under the furniture? Like, where is it?
Yeah.
And one day, after weeks of trying to figure this out, like my wife or my daughter was feeling around the vents on the floor.
No.
And so our boys had decided it's a vent. Let's pee in it.
Yeah.
And so they had been peeing in the vents. And it's like, oh, That's bad. How do you clean that out? Yeah.
How do you clean that out? What do you do?
It involves taking the vent off and putting your arm down and scrubbing it out. That's what it is. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So that wasn't very
So
fun.
put covers over your vents.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, yeah.
You might actually think about that.
No,
that
that's
might
what I'm
actually
saying.
be a
Like,
good idea
I
for
can
you.
see, bro.
So, Lee's favorite part of child rearing, potty training.
Oh, yeah, I
see.
can only imagine.
We'll see. I'll update you guys next week on how it's going. We'll see. Oh man, but let's jump back into 11 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elephant in the room, man.
I have, like Brian said, so many questions. I mean,
Yeah.
The first one: how often did you guys have to buy groceries? I mean, how many
Yeah.
grocery carts did you push around at once?
Wow.
Like,
Well, well, there's a lot of funny stories about groceries, but we spend a lot of money on groceries. 'Cause
Sure.
We've got, I don't know, what is that? Six teenage boys now, right?
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, they just eat.
Nonstop.
It doesn't matter
Sure.
what you have in the house, they eat it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we would go to Sam's and grocery shop when they were younger, and we had this collection of people around us, right? Half white, half black. You go in, people stare at you like, what basketball team are you with?
Sure,
Or
sure.
What club are you with? And so we got that question all the time. It was like, who are you with?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what organization?
The Stinson family?
Yeah, and we're like, this is our family. Yeah. So,
Yeah. So tell me about I'm so curious about your family philosophy around kids. Like what led you to adoption? What led you to adoption overseas? Like if you don't mind sharing, I'm just infinitely curious about how you got to where you are today with kids.
Yeah. So we had 3,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we had talked about adoption when we first got married.
Okay.
And so it was like, okay, if we're going to adopt, now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd spent some time, well, both of us had spent some time over in Africa. And so as we went to adopt, we thought we were going to adopt like from China because that was the picture that we had in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we went to the agency and talked through it, they're like, oh, there's this need in Ethiopia. There's a need in Ethiopia. And it was like, okay, we want to go where the greatest need is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we went with adoption number 1. We adopted a little boy from Ethiopia who was an infant. This was before Brad and Angelina, if you remember that. They adopted
So
from
you guys,
Ethiopia.
you did it before it was cool. is what
Yeah,
you're telling me.
we did it before then,
Yeah.
but we didn't know it was going to become cool.
Yeah.
But it was complicated, meaning there was a whole lot of, there was no
Red tape.
structure there.
Oh, so did the light that they shined on it ease the process for people to do it in the future, or?
It actually made it safer, is what I would
Great.
say.
Okay. Interesting.
Because like when we did it, like you talk about international adoption, it's like 12 to 15 months, sometimes 18 to 24 months.
Holy
Like we got
crap.
through it in like 7 months.
Oh.
And there wasn't a whole lot of safeguards in how that went through. So that was adoption number 1. It was an infant. Adoption number 2 was we adopted from Ethiopia again, infant. And really when we talk about like, why did we go and adopt again? It was really hard for us to say no when you have a need, when you see the need,
Yep. Sure.
right?
Yeah,
And you
servant's
go,
heart.
I've got the ability to do this.
Yeah.
Like, why shouldn't I? And so our faith is important to us, right? And so to us, it was also, I'd say, a calling. So then we had those. Let's see, where were we at? We were at 6
So
then.
that'd be, yeah.
Because
Okay.
we had another one at the same time we had adopted. So we had a black and white that are like 3 months apart.
Awesome.
Wow.
So then it was, okay, we're going to adopt again. And so we're thinking about a group of 2. We tried to adopt through foster care, the foster system in the state, and it didn't work because there was a problem with getting, at the time you couldn't foster if you had 6 kids or more. Because
That was the line the arbitrary line they drew in the sand.
Well, yes, but it was because people were abusing the system. You get
okay.
a stipend when you foster a child.
Hadn't even thought about that. Okay.
And so people were abusing that.
Understood.
So we started looking again to adopt internationally, and we went through Ethiopia. Well, on those lists, we kept getting denied at groups of 2, and there was a group of 4 that came through. And we're like, well, okay, we'll put in for that. And it was like the next day we got a response because no one adopts a group of 4.
Right.
Sure.
And so the rest is history. Yeah.
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 Wow.
So
How
that's
old
we
were
got
the
to
How
10.
old were the 4 when
9,
you brought
7,
them?
6, and 5. And they're now 20, 18, 17, and 16.
And then the littlest one.
Yeah,
came along.
the littlest one was a wow. We're glad you're here.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well,
Wow.
so, I mean, talk me through the logistics of bedtime and bath time,
Right.
like because I was just thinking about this while I was giving Elsie a bath upstairs,
Yeah.
right? That like she was fighting me during brushing our teeth, but it's not that hard for me because I'm a 35-year-old man and she's 2. I can help her brush her teeth, and if she doesn't want to, I can still help her brush her teeth.
Yeah.
How the heck do you do that with 6? I mean, what sounds like basically 6 kids under. I mean, how old? At one point when you had the first 6, was that 6 under?
We had 8 under 10. maybe?
Holy crap!
9 under 10.
So like obviously a 10-year-old can brush their teeth, but like I'm just thinking about like the logistics of bedtime,
Yeah.
even with that many children. Talk me through the process there. Is it like a lot of the just independent, go do your own thing, older kids, or how does that work?
Large family is a whole lot different than small family.
Sure.
And so you have to make adjustments that you don't really think that you're making at the time, but you are, right? So, yeah, we would tag team it. I would do the boys, and she would make sure that the girls were taken care of, or she would take the young ones and I would take the old ones to help them get to bed. And,
Got it.
You know, it's basically you're sprinting all day to get to the end, and then you get to the end and you're like, are we done? And you're like, I think we're done. And so then you like,
And then you
And
fall
then-
on a
then you
pile on the
hear-
couch.
Then you hear footsteps.
but I mean, you guys
Yeah.
know that it isn't. At the time, you're not thinking about that. You're just
Right.
doing, right?
Yeah.
You're doing what's next in front of you to try to do the best you can.
Sure.
And that's what you do.
Fascinating.
I
I just
know. So I'm just curious on this because we just moved the boys into a
Yeah.
room together where they're
Yeah.
sharing.
there you
So
go.
how many kiddos were sharing a room?
We
What?
had 3 in one room, 2 in another, 3 in another. What's that? 6 and 2 and 2. So we had 2 girls in one room, and then we moved into 3 in one room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like right now, we only have 7 kids in the house, right?
Got it.
So it's a little
Only
bit
if-
different.
You know, that's
he's like, this is easy.
child's
We
play.
got 3 in one room, 3 in another. And then
Okay.
the girl has her own bedroom. Yeah.
Awesome.
As they get older, you know, they get more independent. And so you get ones who can not only take care of themselves, but can also help. So like we had
Yeah.
this, my wife developed this buddy
Oh,
system,
sure.
right? So
Yeah.
it was the oldest with the youngest, and it kind of went together, right? So you had these
Oh,
one
okay.
person
Like a
who
mentor.
could, yeah, it
Yeah,
really
literally.
was. It
Yeah.
was like you're responsible for you and your buddy to make sure they make it to the car on time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? You're responsible for you and your buddy to get
Okay.
into the store.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I go, I just got to look at my 5 leaders.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And then my other 5 should be there too. Yeah.
Fascinating.
That's
okay.
a good dad hack for any of the dads out there with 10 plus kids.
Yeah, when you have 10 or more kids, you can pair them off in teams, and it's a buddy system thing. I think that's awesome.
Well, it even works when you have 5 because your oldest is going to be a little bit where they can help out and help grab one of the others.
Sure.
That's just what you do because you don't have 5 hands, right?
No, absolutely not. Well, and we joke. I mean, we have joked about going from. In my case, it's double team the kiddo. In his case, it's currently man to man.
One-on-one.
He's
Yeah.
about to
To be
have to go zone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you guys have a term for what you guys do? 'Cause,
No.
getting mauled.
No, but what we used to say is, look, we can take out any family. We'll be like coyotes and we'll pack you and you're done. Okay.
Elsie's been
from all the sides.
watching some Hotel Transylvania movie,
Yep.
and one of the characters in there is the wolf man and his wife, and the gimmick is they have 12,000 children, and so I just have this mental picture of all the little wolf kids just come running across the screen, and all of a sudden the screen is completely different, and
Yeah.
everything is upside down and
Yeah.
thrown every which way.
That is exactly what it's like. It's like World War Z, you know, where you have all those those zombies that
Yeah.
climb up.
They're
and
just
take care-
stacked up one
That's
on top of
correct.
the other
Yeah,
ones.
That's right. Yeah.
What about I just thought of this. My mom, she's actually one of 9. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so she was telling me about family vacation.
Yeah.
Whenever they went
Ooh,
on family
interesting.
vacation.
Sure.
It's like literally they had to rent like an RV so everybody
Yeah.
could go.
Well, it changes how you do everything. Right?
Yeah.
Because you just don't go to a hotel. I mean, because it's so darn expensive.
Oh, sure.
And so it's like you are always looking for a place where everybody can get in there, right?
Yeah.
and it changes how often you can go do things because of the expense of it. And then you start changing how often you can go out to eat, and so it changes everything, but you just don't realize it at the time
until you get there.
Yeah.
So did you go like full blown? We have a what am I trying to say? What kind of cargo van is it?
Oh, like
the
church van.
Express van, whatever it is.
We have a Sprinter van.
You have a Sprinter. Okay.
Yeah. So when we got our Sprinter van, there were only 2 other Sprinter vans in Springfield. And so people would see my wife driving it, and they would say, "Hey, I saw you were at the mall."
So and so. Sure.
Yeah,
couldn't hide from anybody.
Oh yeah, I couldn't hide from anybody. So she hated it at first.
Yeah.
But it has been so good. So it's a 12-passenger van. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was my parents had this thing. I don't think we've ever talked about this. My parents had a thing called the Spy Network. I'm 5th generation Greene County. My dad is 4th. So we've been around forever. We've been here a very long time. If I don't know what my dad does, if my dad didn't, then his parents did.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those deals where you couldn't go anywhere as a young in Springfield without knowing 3 different people.
Yep.
Sure.
And that translated to me as a teenage driver.
Mm-hmm.
And your story about your wife being recognized everywhere she drove, that really struck home with me, because there were 2 or 3 different instances when I was a kid where I was driving down Battlefield probably a little too fast. And somebody called my dad, "Hey, I saw your son. Doesn't he have that green GMC Jimmy? I think I saw your son speeding down Battlefield. You might want to tell him to slow it down." God dang it. So we always talked about the Spy Network. So everybody knows what you're doing no matter what. When there's 3 in town, though, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Your dad also your insurance agent.
Also my insurance agent.
Calls,
Sure.
We're doing the, whatever that is they put in your car to monitor your speed at the time.
That didn't exist at the time, but had it existed, my dad would have put it in there twice. They would have put a backup in under the car that I couldn't get to take it off of there. Well, we were talking ahead of time, and we asked a couple of questions about just kind of to prompt the conversation today. You said something about trying to combat entitlement in your kids, and I wondered if you would speak on that a little bit. Tell us about what you're dealing with and kind of how you came to it and what you're doing about it.
Yeah, I think we started seeing it when our kids started saying, I need this. And, they say they need it, and you're like, oh, okay, what do you need? Let's talk about what needs are, right?
Let's use the definition of the word.
Yeah, and so they started talking about, and I think the first time I remember is when they said, Dad, I need a gym membership. And I'm like, a gym membership? Yeah, all my friends have gym memberships, and then I can go and I can work out, and then I'll be strong, and, and I'm like, you don't need a gym membership. You want one. If you want to go get strong, go put some blocks on your back and do some push-ups. I can help you get that strong. And it was like, okay, where's that coming from? Well, I mean, I didn't grow up in a family that was poor by any means, but my dad also, had his GED and only went to school until he was 8th grade. And they made it through, and we were middle class. And I don't want my kids thinking that they deserve things that are luxuries, right? And so we see it there, and then you hear him say things like, "Oh, all my friends are doing X, Y, Z on the weekend," and it's like, well, and so I think we struggle a little bit, or at least I do, as a dad, to say, am I making this too difficult on them, or am I teaching them the value of hard work?
Where's the line, right?
Where do you balance that? Because there needs to be some understanding of what it takes to be successful, especially as they get to be teenagers, right? You want them to start learning that, and you even need them to start learning that when they're in their 5, 6, right? They need to start doing some chores and having some responsibility.
Yeah.
But it's just, how do you balance it? And so I just see entitlement in a lot of my kids' friends, and it makes me anxious. I don't want my kids to feel like they deserve it, they have to earn it.
Right.
Interesting. Well, and so I was raised in a boy family. We talk about that a lot on the show, that when I was first learned I was having a daughter, my hair on the back of my neck stood up, because I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. I have a mother and I have a couple of girl cousins, and that was kind of it.
Yep.
And so I looked to the example of some of my father's friends or some of my friends' dads and how they would address their daughters and how they would treat their daughters. And a lot of them talked about my princess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or they had this my baby, my princess mentality that I mean, they're now, I mean, they were in their 20s before dad stopped calling them princess. And like to their face, unironically. And it scared me to death that I didn't want to be that dad, because I also know full well that I want that kid to have the world.
Right.
And I want to give her the world. And how do you find that line? And I'm still figuring that out now. To be clear, I don't have it figured out.
Well, I think that's a really good point. So our first one to leave the house was my daughter, and she was, she's now 24, right? She's doing very well. They live in the Houston, Texas area, right?
Cool.
Good people. They've developed into good people, regardless of what.
Congratulations, Dad. Good job.
I know. It's like, one made it. But I remember.
And Mrs. Stinson, to be clear, I'm sure you had plenty to do with it too.
So I remember, though, when she got to be like 16, I was having this anxiety, and I was talking to my wife about it. It's like, oh, no, we haven't prepared her. Like, we haven't prepared her for life. And so I made a list of like 10 things that I needed her to know before she left the house.
Okay.
Right? Which was like, and some of them she already knew, but I wanted to be sure. It was like how to change a light bulb.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
How to change a tire on your car, right? How to change the oil in your car, right? So all these things that it was like, I never taught her because I ended up doing them for her.
Yep. Right.
And it was like, but I want you to at least know how to do it so you don't need to depend on somebody for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it set a bad habit, right?
Right.
Did you have any buds that like, I as a friend of one of my really good friends in college, pumped this girl's gas because she never learned how to do it. Her dad always did it for her.
Yeah.
That was one of the things, too.
When we were freshmen, Lizzie, hi Liz, called me and said, hey, I don't know how to get gas in my car. Can you come with me?
Yep.
And I was like, uh-huh.
Yeah.
We're 19-year-olds. What are you talking about? And she'd never done it.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those deals where you don't know your blind spots as a
Yeah.
kid until you get up to against it. It's like, oh crap, what do I do now?
Yeah, and so I mean, we as dads, try to do our best to prepare our kids for that, and we're not going to hit the mark. We're not going to hit the mark every time, but if we can hit 80% of it, right, and so then they only have to learn 20%.
Yeah.
So it's a balance of how do you, I think for my girls, is how do you treat them well and know they need to be treated well and respected by guys and girls, right?
And that's a whole nother wrinkle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And
That's-
how at the same time do you train them to be independent and not feel like they have to depend on somebody for anything? And so that's a hard balance.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of where we are. And
Yeah.
now that we're getting ready to have a girl, right? It's like, well, how do you teach the boys kind of, the guy or the boy's side of that, and then two, how do you teach your daughter or the girl side of that without spoiling either one of them on either side, right? I mean, we're at an age right now where we think we're doing the right thing, right? But we don't know for sure because we're not.
It's not 10 years in the future, and we aren't able to see.
Luckily, Liam's like hitting this age right now where we're starting to see kind of the stuff that we're doing. Like it's starting to work. It's starting to pay off. But hopefully we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever had that experience with your young kids where all of a sudden you see them do something and you go, where did they learn that? Oh, that was me.
Yeah.
They learned that from me.
This week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This week.
And you're like, oh, I guess I have to work on myself if I want to fix that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to have those times, where it's just like, oh, they're learning this from me.
Yeah.
I'm
Little
the problem
sponges.
here.
Yep.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
my father is obsessed with yard work. Absolutely perfectly manicured yard. Refuses to let anybody else do it either. He's not going to pay somebody. He's out there with his mower and his cigar, and he's
the
out
guy
there.
that says, I'm not mowing it. I'm just pushing it. You're just pushing it down when you go that fast.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to really slow down and you got to sharpen the blades to cut the
correct.
grass, not tear it, all
Yeah.
that stuff. And like, if there's ever a leaf in his yard out of place, he's freaking out about it. So I then, being the shithead kid that I am, will give him crap if I ever see a leaf in his yard. So fast forward to Tuesday, where Elsie spends the day with my mom on Tuesdays, and there were some leaves down in my dad's yard, and Elsie looks at my mom and goes, Lala, you need to clean up your yard. Yard has leaves. And pulled my dad aside when he got home. Pop, you need to clean up your yard. Yard has leaves. So I'm just talking crap on my dad, and my daughter thinks it's real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, shoot. Uh-oh.
Yeah, my wife has said that to me. She's like, he's doing that because you did it.
You're just like your father.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
just like
yeah.
your mother.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so funny because I've talked about this before on the episode where like my dad, when he's doing like simple little task and he gets like easily frustrated with them, and then whenever I'm doing them, putting furniture together and something's not working quite right, I get really frustrated. Well, I've noticed Liam starts doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
When something isn't quite working how he wants, he's like, "Gosh darn it!" Like, luckily he hasn't said any bad words yet, but it's probably coming. But it's just it's
Yeah,
so
me
funny.
neither.
It's like you can just see it. You're like, "Yep, I got that from my dad. He got that from me."
It's generational, baby.
And it
It's
keeps going.
generational.
I'm trying to break this habit, and yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? And you can see that in the negative, but then again, you can also see it in the positive, right?
Yep.
Where we talked about this. We both now have limiters on our phones on the amount of screen time that we use as dads, because frankly, the irony of this is not lost on me. I saw a video come across on social media of.
How did you learn that, Brian?
Yeah, it's amazing how that works. It was a picture, and it was obviously staged, but it really hit home in my head of a dad sitting on the end of the bed, looking at his phone, flipping through something, and here comes the kid into the room. And the kid looks up at dad and sees that dad's on his phone, and he just kind of stands there for a second, and then he walks off. Mm-hmm. And then it's cut to another thing, and it's the dad just sitting on the end of the bed, and here comes the kid running in, looks up and sees dad not looking at his phone, and because dad's not looking, dad looks at his kid and makes eye contact, and boom, the kid's running, jumping on his lap, so excited to see him. And it really punched me in the gut, because I was like, well, I sit around and fiddle with my phone sometimes. How many times has my kid walked into the room, seen me dinking around on my phone, tried to make eye contact with me, can't get my attention, and just goes, all right, I guess I'll go do something else. It made me feel like absolute crap.
Yeah.
And so we now have limiters on our phones. And again, I'm hoping that it shows her that, like, hey, you don't have to be dinking with electronics all the time, or it's cool to live in the moment. It's better to be, with your family when you're with your family.
Yeah. The intentionality of being with your kids doesn't change if you have one or if you have 11.
Sure.
It really isn't. I mean,
it's hard. I mean, yeah.
I don't know that it's harder. It's just, it's not the same.
Sure.
It's, you're trying to take advantage of every moment. So you go to Menards, right? And it's like, who should go with you, right? And so you take advantage of the time that you might otherwise think is not valuable, right? Mm-hmm. But going to Menards could be valuable, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So my son, who plays baseball right now, who's 14, said, some of my best memories are when you drive me home from a baseball game.
Cool.
It's like, I guess that's good. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm thinking, well, maybe I wouldn't think that would be your best memories, but they're meaningful to him, right?
Right.
So it's taking advantage of all those times. It's really key.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing we've talked about several times on here too, is one-on-one time with kiddos, how important that is.
Glad you brought it up. With
11 kids, I mean, I guess that's a great way to do it. Just simple tasks. Going to Menards or driving to the baseball game. You have
to be creative.
I was going to say, how do you guys do that? I guess.
Well, there was a time where we used to say, hey, this week I'm going to make sure that I spend time with X kid, right? And so we would do that when they were younger, because the ones who are more outgoing or who are more active, it's they're with you, right? But the ones who are more withdrawn, you tend not to spend the same amount of time with, because they're okay, they're safe
in their own world,
right?
Yeah. Sure.
And so we actually went through and set up a schedule. I'm going to spend time with this one this week, and then next week it'll be this one and that one. And so we went through. Now it's not the same just because they're older and they want to have their own lives.
Yeah.
But it's still important.
Yeah.
They still value it. They just don't do it with words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the intentionality is still there, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's one kid or 11 kids, the intentionality of, hey, I'm going to spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. I'm making time, whether it's once this week or a whole week, whatever it takes. I'm going to be intentional in taking time with them.
And I think a husband and wife, it helps to balance that, because at least in our family, it's like, oh, you spend a lot of time with these. You haven't spent a lot of time with this one. And it's like, oh, I haven't. I should do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that was we struggle with. I am not the preferred. I struggle. I shouldn't say we. I struggle with. I am not the preferred parent to Elsie right now. Elsie, very much a mama's girl, and if she is hurt, if she gets startled, she looks to mom before she looks to me, which is fine. It is what it is. I don't get to pick that. Would I like her to be mine? Yeah, absolutely. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But Liv and I have talked about it and tried to do some reading on it and tried to just learn a little bit more about it. And what we've decided is we're putting more, again, intentionality towards, I'm going to do one-on-one things with my kid, to where we build that relationship away from mom. Not to say that we're trying to exclude mom, but just build that relationship away from mom so that we can continue to cultivate that solid relationship. We went to the zoo this afternoon.
No.
Just Elsa and I.
Yeah.
And with the network. But we went to the zoo, and it was just the two of us just dinking around, and she was just this little independent little monster. I've got a funny little picture of her. It's a networking group through the chamber.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of other people and a lot of their kids. And
Yeah.
I try to let her have free reign. When she's out, I'll keep an eye on her, but I'm not going to let her run too far off. But we're standing there. Someone from the zoo is talking, and she's like sitting next to me for a second. And then she looks and just starts wandering off and goes and stands in a line with all the dudes. And it's just her. And it's like 3 different people, Elsie, 3 different other people just standing perfectly in a circle. It's like, oh, okay, bye. Love you too. Good to see you.
I got this, Dad.
I'm going to be over here with my buds. You just stay over there. It's fine. But just, again, trying to spend time with her. I just like that funny story. But like trying to spend time with her just to create that relationship, because frankly, I didn't get to breastfeed her and I didn't birth her. So, it makes sense that she likes mom more than me.
It's good that you didn't breastfeed her.
Yeah, that's probably for the best.
From the doctor?
She'd be picking all kinds of hair out of her mouth. It'd be a whole problem.
Take the doctor's advice. Don't try it. Don't try it. That's a tough conversation right there, bro.
Hey, now you're talking. Look at him.
But yeah, no, leading into that, I know that was another thing that you really wanted to hit on, Matt, is having those tough conversations, or those, talking about those hard topics with your kiddos. That's another thing we're trying to figure out as well too, before we kind of get to that point with our kids, is how do you guys develop that relationship? Kind of how do you guys practice that to be able to have those conversations and discuss those topics?
Yeah. So my wife is so good at it. She is so fearless.
We hear this often. It's just have a good wife.
Yeah. Oh, she is so fearless about it. So when we had daughters, she exampled it well for me. Like, she was the one who would go and sit down. And so the difficult conversation we always think about is, let's talk about have the sex talk, right? And so she went through these books with them. And so, when they were like 10, 11, 12, and it started out with just, what are male and female body parts, and then it moved forward, and then it got into really difficult things like, what is rape, and what does that mean? And it was like all these things, and I was like, that is hard. Yeah. When it's transitioned to boys, that's me. That's on me.
Yeah.
And so, I took my 2 oldest boys away for a weekend, and we spent the weekend away when we did that, right? And it was like a guy's weekend, right? With my
guy's night.
Yeah. And so we went away and watched. I think we watched The Hobbit, right? We went away and watched The Hobbit, and then we rode go-karts and stuff like that. With my other 2, like my 17 and 16-year-old, I postponed. I kept putting it off. So
I did this once. I don't have to do it again. Oh no!
It was really awkward the first time.
It was actually just a few weeks ago. We were at a basketball tournament, and I was like, "We're going to do this."
Yeah.
So I told my wife, "We're going to do this." She's like, "Okay, have you done this yet?" No. So I did, and I said, "Hey guys, we're going to have this difficult talk," and I said, "We're going to talk about this," and I said, "It's going to be awkward," and then my boys go, head down. I'm like,
Dad,
it's okay. We're going to talk about it, because if I don't talk about it with you, you're going to talk about it with your friends, and I want you to be able to talk to me freely about it. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to judge you, but let's talk about it. And I think it starts though at an early age, like when you hear your kids say something that you don't know that you've talked about it, that's maybe above their head, like not being afraid to lean into it.
Sure.
Say, tell me what you mean. Right.
Yeah. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. What does that mean? And then most of the time they don't even know what they're saying.
Yep.
Right. And so then you get the opportunity to frame that in the way that you want to frame it. Right.
Yeah.
And then you can come back to it later. And so it just gives open communication. They're not afraid to talk about it with you.
Sure. Well, and we've kind of talked about it, and I don't even know if we've talked about this on the air, but more just like talked about it in general, trying to build that relationship with them where, like, God forbid something happens to them and they're underage drinking or something, and they call you, and it's But I want to be the call. If
Absolutely.
or even if you're not underage drinking and you're 21 years old and you're out at the bar and you get in a position where you're stuck and you need somebody, I want her to feel comfortable to call me. But it's building that relationship, facilitating that trust, and again having those hard conversations, being willing to have those hard conversations so that they can hopefully reciprocate that back, right? That they see you making the step towards the hard conversation, so that then hopefully they'll have the trust in you to do the same.
Yeah, our kids too, they like stand around the table or stand around the counter and they talk about these things that they hear in the news, or they talk about these things that they hear their friends talk about, like homosexuality at school, right? And so they talk about that, and then it's like you can either step back and let them talk about it and not lean into it, or you can lean into it and say, hey, tell me what you mean. What do you think about that? And try to get them to critically think about it instead of just reciprocating what it is their friends hear, right?
Yeah.
So
repeating,
it takes intentionality again about being willing to go into places that maybe we don't have the answers for, or I don't have the answers for, but at least letting them think about it and say it outwardly instead of inwardly.
Man, that's
Facilitating an open conversation.
Yeah.
Just whatever it is.
going to be the dad hack I take away from this episode, is leaning into those awkward conversations.
100%.
For whatever reason, my wife, she's, like you were just saying, so good at that. Like, she'll just happily ask them the most awkward question it can be. And me as a dad, and I'm sure other dads are like this too, it's like you just avoid kind of that awkwardness. You're like you were saying about with your second set of boys, you're like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it, type deal, right?
Put it off,
right? Why is it
Yeah,
so
yeah.
hard for us
Yeah.
to talk about those things? So man, lean into that awkwardness. I love that.
Yeah. What about, you've got 11 kids. Inevitably,
established that.
I don't know if we've talked about this yet. You've got 11 kids. I don't know if you know.
Shocker.
Are you
We
aware?
established this, yeah.
Okay. There's got to be some funny stories that have come up, or funny situations that you've dealt with the kids.
Oh.
We always like to try and end with some funny stories. Are there any that stand out to you?
I got a few.
Perfect.
I mean, I got a lot.
Go.
I don't think we have time for all of it.
I'll be here as long as you want to go, pal.
Okay. Well, I'll start with a couple. So I got one from. So we have, like I said, dark skinned boys, light skinned boys, and so we were my son Will, when he was like 3 or 4, we were doing soccer, right? And so he's on the soccer, and it was like 5-on-5, and so it's as a Springfield is, it's mostly white, right? So 4 white and him, and then 4 white and another black kid on the other team. And so at the end of the game, they're talking, and so the boy says to my son Will, says, as Will's talking to his mom, "Your mom is white?" And he goes, "Yeah." And then that boy starts talking to his mom, and he goes, "Wait, your mom is black?" And they go, "Yeah." And then they shrug it off and they walk on. It's like,
That's normal.
that's funny. Yeah. So, things you wouldn't think about.
Sure.
We had an experience with.
Your mom is black?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom's white, so.
And then just like shrugged it off.
All
and
right.
went on. Okay.
Good game. See you later.
We had a funny potty training story too.
Oh, gosh.
So this is what happens in a family of 11.
Yeah.
Okay. So kid number 10, right? This is kid number 10, boy. And he has some problems with wetting the bed when he's like 6, 7, right?
Sure.
So we're trying to help him. So one morning I get up and I walk in his room, and he's like sleeping naked with underwear on and no sheets on the bed. And I said, "What happened?" And we have this intercom, that he usually would call us. And he goes, "Well, I woke up, I wet the bed, I got up, I showered, I took my sheets off my bed, I got back in bed." And I was like, "Well, why didn't you call us?" He goes, "Well, I just thought you might want to sleep." And I was like, "Oh."
I mean, I did.
That's horrible.
Thank you.
I know.
But also,
Like, I really appreciate it. And it's like, you just don't expect your 6-year-old to be able to do all that.
What a
right?
mature thought process
Be
for a
so
6-year-old.
considerate too,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Of you.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're like guilty. Wow, I should have woken up and I should have helped him.
Right.
But also,
But then I'm also like, I'm really thankful.
Thanks for
so
being
well
considerate.
rested.
And also, I slept so well last night.
So then we have, we things got so out of hand for us that we started keeping this book. And I don't know who came up with it. It might have been me. It's like things as adults we never thought we would say.
Oh my gosh.
Go on. Yeah.
And so we started writing down all the things that like don't make sense that we never thought we'd say, and we'd write them in a book, and then we'd come back to them and read them.
Sure.
Well, one of them was, and this is the main one I remember because we haven't looked at that book in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
One of those was we were trying to teach the kids how to have fun. And so this was when we had 10 of them. And so my wife is in there, and so we started giving the kids wedgies. And they're like, oh, this is fun. And like the boys are all like leaning into us. They're like pulling each other's underwear up.
Sure.
All the way, like ripping the underwear of everyone else.
Slapping them up over the top of their heads.
Yeah,
The whole thing.
And then I see my
Typical
wife
boys.
standing over the counter, and her eyes get really wide. And all of a sudden, I knew what she was thinking because I was thinking the same thing. And she's thinking, oh no, they don't know anything about this. We've got 4 kids adopted from Ethiopia who've never done this. They're going to go into public and they're going to just start giving people wedgies.
They're going to go do this at church on Sunday.
This is what we do in America and for fun times. And so her eyes get really big, and all of a sudden she stops and she blurts out and she says, boys, we don't give people wedgies unless they ask for them. Yeah. And I was like, really? Who's going to ask for a wedgie?
You never know.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. When we inevitably write the Decent Dads book, you guys get a whole chapter, and it's just all the things that you guys said that you would never, like, how the heck are we saying this right now?
Yeah, I mean,
what is life?
Yeah, all those things you never thought you'd say, and you're like, this should never come out of someone's mouth.
Right.
You only give wedgies to people who ask
if they ask for it. Yeah, no one's ever going to say that. It's
Never,
a dumb thing
never
to
in
say.
life has that been a thing.
Yeah. So I mean, we could go on and on. Do you guys have a funny story?
No.
Oh.
We're it's funny that you brought up that story because we are in the wedgie phase right now, where the boys just.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah. The boys love doing it to each other, and like Liam can't really get Brody yet because he's still in a diaper.
Sure. Well,
but
that makes sense.
But a little bit, but you can get Liam really good. And
Does Brody try to get Liam?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that makes me
like
so
Brody,
happy.
Yeah, Brody's like running behind him, both hands on his underwear, like trying to keep up with him and pull him up high, but he's not really tall enough to do it that well.
Well, yeah, and at a certain point, it just ends up looking like those sunscreen boxes, that sunscreen bottle with the little kid who's got his pants pulled down by the dog.
Yeah.
It's just Liam dragging behind Liam.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Or Brody.
Brody dragging behind Liam, holding onto his underwear, trying to give him a wedgie.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of funny stories right now. I mean, yeah, it's every day with the boys. I mean, okay, so like I said, it's been hot out. We've been playing with water. For whatever reason, our boys in the backyard, they want to strip naked. They want to get naked and just spin around our backyard butt naked.
Yeah,
and we have
fences, baby.
this big flower pot, and it's again things you never thought kids would do. This big empty like flower pot. It's like 4 feet tall. And Brody just puts the hose in it, fills it up with water. I mean, like full. It's taller than he is. And then Liam's like, he calls him Bobo. Like, Bobo, I'm going to lay down here on the ground, and you just dump the water on me. So sure enough, he lays down. I mean, this is probably like, 10 gallons of water. I mean, it's a lot of water. And you just see it just blow right over Liam, like full naked body. And he's just dying laughing. And he's done this like 4 or 5 times, and it's just a big mud puddle by the end of it, and just covered in mud, covered in grass. And you're just like... Yeah, again, the things you never thought you'd say or you never thought your kids would do. Yeah. It's just,
Oh, and it's constant. I mean, with a little kid, it's everything they do is not what a normal person would do, right? And so it's just inevitable. I mean, I can't.
Yes.
Elsie's in the stage of play where it doesn't matter what the toys are. It's just that she gets to dump them out of whatever container they are in. And so we've tried to be as organized as we can with a 3-year-old in the house. We didn't even get to it with your family, but I can't, like, trying to be organized with a 3-year-old has been hard enough times 11. I cannot even fathom. But right now it's just everything gets dumped out, and she finds all these toys and finds all these things that either I tried to hide from her so that we never had to listen to it again. You know, the toys with batteries that make noises that you're crappy friends give you because they're just trying to be jerks about it.
No.
Yeah, we found so many obnoxious toys that Elsie's just, ooh, what is this thing I thought was long gone? And now it's bubbles. So now all we want to do is bubbles. And so she'll bring the bubble blower into the house. We've got because I'm a dad, I'm going to do the yard work. I'm obsessed with yard work just like the old man is. Unfortunately.
So you have the same mentality.
Well, I don't love it as much as he does. It's
Yeah.
just one of those things that I have to do. But I've got she's got a blower, like a leaf blower, but it's a bubble machine. And she brings it into the house and she'll just leave it running. And I won't see that she's brought it in because it's supposed to stay in the backyard. But she brings it in and she'll set it on the counter and just let it go. Click it, turn it on, and then just walk away. And so I've just got soap suds all over my living room.
Yeah.
Like my couch is permanently got soap stains on it because it's just the kid blowing bubbles at it. It's inevitable.
So it made me think, what you specifically say, you kind of have to be careful on as well too. So 2 examples here. Liam, he's in T-ball right now, right? And
Please.
And they're hitting him grounders, right?
Oh.
And I might have told this story before, but we tell them, whenever they hit the ball to you, put your glove on the ground, right?
Yep.
That's exactly how we said it. Next ground ball that comes to him, he takes his glove off, sets it on the ground, the ball rolls right over around between his legs.
Put your glove on it.
And he looks at me like, it still went past us or past me, Like I did exactly what you told me, and I'm like,
bad idea, Dad.
okay, we got to be a little more specific. And then
Is that kind of like the kid that said, "Put your eye on the ball"?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's like tonight with Brody, we were eating Chipotle. He was eating guacamole, or we told him like, "Hey, Brody, you need to eat your guacamole," and he has, fork, spoon, knife, right? The plastic ones. What's he choose to eat his guacamole with? The knife. Yeah, just dips the knife in it, just bites it off, and it's like, man, just living life on the edge, and it's just like
that's the beauty of having kids, though. Is like they just do the things you least expect, and you look at them and go, "I never would have thought you would have done that."
right.
Yet,
How
it's
is
so
this how
good.
you
I
arrived
didn't
at
think I would have to specify, eat your guacamole with your spoon. Right?
How is this? How have we gotten here? What's going on?
Yeah.
Well, DC, we should probably get to everybody's favorite part of the episode.
Matt, do you know everybody's favorite part?
What is it?
Dad joke of the week. All right.
Now.
What?
Now.
You said you
I know
didn't
now.
really like dad jokes.
No, I didn't say I didn't like them. I said I'm not good at telling.
Okay, sorry, I didn't listen
that's
very
what
well.
it was, yeah.
Okay.
So, tell me your dad joke because I don't believe you.
Well, my kids would agree with me that I'm not very good at it.
Perfect.
Okay. So why did the chicken cross the playground?
Perfect. This is the first one of these we've had.
Why did it cross the plate?
I got nothing.
Yeah.
To get to the other slide.
Come on. No,
That's
that's good. Yes, I'm into
That's
that.
good.
That's a good one.
That's
I'm,
good.
Yeah, I'm
That's
taking
good.
that one. That
Yep.
one's going to my back pocket.
Yep.
Well, we've got a doctor here, so I thought that I would at least try to bring
topic
a.
joke? Yeah.
It's kind of gross, but it's still a doctor joke nonetheless.
Please tell me you have potty humor.
Well, kind of.
Okay,
Yeah, at least to some extent. What is the difference between an oral thermometer and a rectal thermometer?
I don't know.
The taste. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry.
No.
I'm sorry.
No. Oh gosh.
What do you got, buddy?
Well, I will end on a cleaner one.
Thank you.
Uh,
Hey,
pun intended.
I get it. Yeah, that was funny.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so you guys know I'm a big fisherman, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
So why are fish so easy to weigh?
I don't know. Why are they?
There's scales
Yeah,
involved.
because they have so many scales.
Yeah, there it is. I knew it was close. I was going to get there.
You almost had it.
You just needed time.
Yeah,
You
Yeah,
got there.
we've
Five
been,
more seconds.
We've been doing too many dad jokes. That's all it is. We've got 180 of these dad jokes
Right.
out there at this
If
point. It's not
more.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad.
Wrap this thing up, DC.
Yeah. Well, we got to end on our decent dad's motto: keeping the bar within reach.
That's right.
But no, all seriousness, we're here to build a community of dads. So if you have some good dad advice, share it with us. We want to hear it. If you're struggling with something, let us know that too. Maybe we can help you out or find
Direct you to somebody who knows better than us.
Yep.
We're just decent.
Or
We're not
find
good
some good
dads.
advice maybe for you as well too. Or if you have good dad jokes, clearly we could use those as well.
Yeah, we could
too.
use the help. Please send them our way.
At least we had one good one. Thank you, Matt. We
Yeah, thanks,
appreciate
Doc.
that. But yeah, be sure and check out our social medias. Check out our episodes that come out the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. They can be found on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and YouTube.
Facebook and Instagram. Like, share, subscribe, do all the social media stuff.
That's right. All the good stuff.
One last little thing we got to say is way to go, decent dad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
in
Matt.
it.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Love you,
it.
buddy. Anything else anybody wants to plug? Anybody got anything else we want to talk about before
Kid
we
number 12.
for the good of the order? Anything you have to tell us?
There is no kid number
Okay,
12
Any
check.
announcements
Thought
you
we
want to
checked.
make?
Thought we
Just throwing it out there. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up then, kid
Let's
number
do it.
12. Did you see how big his eyes got for just a second? It's like, no. He's got a football team already. He doesn't need it. He
That's
doesn't
right.
need the water boy to go along
That's
with
right.
it.
So true.
All right, we'll wrap this thing up here. We'll see you next time. Probably heard this because you listened to the episode, but
Yeah.
our introduction does get a little obnoxious when you're in the room.
I heard it.
So I apologize.
He's like,
ahead of
I
time.
noticed.
It's
Yeah,
good.
I heard it.
I
It
got
was silly ahead of time. Yeah, so here we go.